The scars on Olivia Harper's face told a story she wished the world would forget. But the whispers in Seattle, Washington territory, reminded her daily that forgetting was a luxury she would never know. She stood behind the counter of Miller's General Store in 1878, her head tilted downward as she counted coins with trembling fingers, always keeping the ruined side of her face angled away from customers who would stare anyway. The fire had happened 3 years ago, back in San Francisco when she was only 17. Her father had been drunk again, knocking over an oil lamp in their small boarding house room. She had tried to save him, dragging his unconscious body through flames that licked at her skin like the devil's own tongue. He survived another year before the drink finally killed him, leaving her alone with a face that made children cry and men look away in disgust. Her mother had died giving birth to her, so there was no one left who remembered her as beautiful, no one who saw past the twisted flesh that pulled at the corner of her mouth and the shiny pink tissue that covered half her face and neck. Seattle was supposed to be a fresh start, but small towns were all the same. People pretended kindness while their eyes betrayed them. At 20 years old, Olivia had resigned herself to a life alone, working in the back of stores, keeping house for families who pitied her enough to pay for services rendered but not enough to truly see her as human. She had learned to make herself small, invisible, unworthy of love or even simple affection. The bell above the door jangled, and Olivia instinctively turned her good side toward the sound. She heard heavy boots on the wooden floor and the jingle of spurs. Most of the ranchers came to town on Saturdays for supplies, and this was a Tuesday, so she glanced up briefly in curiosity before remembering herself and looking back down. "Afternoon," a deep voice said, warm like honey in tea. "I am looking for rope, nails, and 3 bags of flour if you have them." "Yes, sir," Olivia said quietly, keeping her scarred side turned away. "The rope is on the back wall, nails are in the bins by the window, and I will get the flour from the storage room." She moved quickly, practiced at navigating the store without presenting her face to customers. But as she turned to head to the storage room, she made the mistake of glancing at the man. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and sun-darkened skin that spoke of years working under the open sky. His hair was dark brown and slightly too long, curling at his collar, and his eyes were the color of spring grass. He was perhaps 25, maybe a bit older, with strong hands and a face that was handsome in a rugged, honest way. He was looking directly at her, not at the floor, not at the wall behind her, but at her face, both sides of it. Olivia felt her stomach drop and quickly spun away, nearly running to the storage room. Her hands shook as she hoisted the heavy flour bags, and she took several deep breaths before returning. When she came back out, the man had gathered the rope and nails and was waiting patiently at the counter. "Let me help you with those," he said, stepping forward. "I can manage," Olivia said quickly, not wanting him any closer. "I am sure you can, but my mother raised me to offer help when I see someone struggling with a heavy load." His voice held no pity, just matter-of-fact courtesy. "Name's James Vaughn. I have a ranch about 10 miles north of town." Olivia set the bags on the counter with a thud, still not looking at him. "That will be $4.30. James counted out the money slowly, and Olivia felt his eyes on her. She wished he would just take his supplies and leave. She wished she could disappear into the floorboards. She wished for a lot of things that would never come true. "I have not seen you before," James said. "Are you new to Seattle?" "I have been here 6 months," Olivia replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Well then, welcome. It is a good town, good people." He paused, and Olivia could feel him searching for her eyes, but she refused to give them. I come to town every Tuesday for supplies. It is nice to know I will see a friendly face. Olivia's throat tightened. Friendly face. The irony was almost funny. Your change, sir, she managed, holding out the coins without looking up. His hand brushed hers as he took the money, and Olivia jerked back as if burned. James paused, then gathered his supplies. Thank you, miss. I hope you have a pleasant afternoon. She did not respond until she heard the door close behind him, and then she let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Her hands were still shaking. Something about the way he had looked at her, really looked at her, had unsettled her deeply. She told herself it was disgust she had seen in those green eyes, though a small, traitorous part of her whispered it had been something else entirely. The following Tuesday, James Vaughn returned. And the Tuesday after that, and the one after that. Each time he made polite conversation that Olivia deflected with short answers and averted eyes. Each time he looked at her fully, never flinching, never turning away. It made her angry in a way she could not explain. Why did he insist on staring? Was he trying to memorize every horrible detail to laugh about later with his ranch hands on his fifth visit? Nearly 2 months after that first meeting, James did something unexpected. He brought her a book. I noticed you reading during a quiet moment last week, he said, setting a leather-bound volume on the counter. I thought you might enjoy this one. It is poetry, mostly. Longfellow and Whittier. Olivia stared at the book as if it were a snake. I cannot accept that. It is not a gift of any great value, James said easily. Just something gathering dust on my shelf that deserves to be read. Why? The word came out harsher than she intended. Why what? Why would you give me anything? Olivia's hands clenched into fists. What do you want from me? James looked genuinely confused. I do not want anything. I just thought you might like it. People do not just give things without wanting something in return. Olivia finally looked up at him, letting him see the full ruin of her face, daring him to recoil. Especially not to someone who looks like me. For a long moment, James said nothing. His green eyes studied her face carefully, and Olivia waited for the disgust, the pity, the horror. Instead, he said quietly, You have very beautiful eyes, like amber in sunlight. Olivia felt as though he had struck her. She took a step back, her breath catching. Do not mock me. I would never. James's voice was serious now, intense. I meant what I said. You have beautiful eyes, and I have enjoyed our conversations these past weeks, brief though they have been. I brought you a book because I thought it would make you happy. Nothing more, nothing less. Olivia's vision blurred with sudden tears. She turned away quickly, mortified. Please leave. Did I offend you? I apologize if I did. Just go, Olivia whispered, her voice breaking. She heard him hesitate, heard his boots shift on the wooden floor. Then, quietly, he said, I will leave the book here. If you decide you want it, it is yours. If not, I will collect it next week. After he left, Olivia stared at the book for a long time. Finally, when she was sure no other customers would come in, she opened it with trembling fingers. On the inside cover, in neat handwriting, were the words, For the lady with amber eyes, may these words bring you joy. J.V. She cried then, really cried for the first time since coming to Seattle. She cried for the kindness she did not know how to accept, for the compliment that had shattered something inside her, for the loneliness that had become so familiar she had almost forgotten it was not normal. And when she was done crying, she began to read. The next Tuesday, Olivia had the book waiting on the counter. When James came in, she pushed it toward him without a word. He looked at it, then at her. You did not like it. I loved it, Olivia admitted, still not meeting his eyes. But I cannot keep it. It would not be proper. Proper according to whom? James asked. We are friends, are we not? Friends can exchange books. We are not friends, Olivia said, though the words tasted like lies. You are a customer. I am a shop girl, that is all." James was quiet for a moment, then he said, "What if I want to be friends?" "Why would you want that?" Olivia's voice rose despite herself. "Look at me." She turned fully toward him, forcing him to see everything she usually hid. "Why would someone like you want anything to do with someone like me?" James did look, long and carefully. His eyes traced the scars, the twisted skin, the damage that would never heal. Olivia waited for him to make an excuse and leave to finally show his true feelings. But instead, he said, "I see a woman who survived something terrible. I see someone who works hard, who is kind to every customer even when they do not deserve it, who loves poetry enough to finish that entire book in a week. I see someone I would very much like to know better." Olivia shook her head, unable to process his words. "You are either cruel or insane." "I am neither," James said firmly. "I am simply a man who knows a good person when he meets one." He paused, then added, "My mother died 2 years ago. Before she passed, she told me that beauty fades but character endures. She said to look for a woman with a kind heart and a strong spirit, because those are the things that matter when life gets hard." His eyes met hers. "I think you are that kind of woman, Olivia Harper." The sound of her name in his mouth made her tremble. "How do you know my name?" "I asked Mr. Miller," James admitted. "I hope that is not too forward of me." It was absolutely too forward by any measure of propriety, but Olivia found she did not care. Something inside her, something she thought had died in the fire, was stirring to life again. It was fragile and frightening, this feeling, and she wanted to crush it before it could grow and inevitably hurt her. "I am unlovable," she said flatly. "I have accepted that. You should too." James's expression shifted to something fierce. "Who told you that?" "Everyone. The world, the mirror." "Then everyone is wrong." He leaned on the counter, bringing himself closer to her level. "Will you have dinner with me?" Olivia laughed, a harsh sound. "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "Because people will talk. Because you will be ashamed to be seen with me, because this is madness." "People always talk," James said. "I do not care what they say. I will never be ashamed of you, and if wanting to share a meal with a remarkable woman is madness, then I am happy to be mad." "You do not know me," Olivia protested weakly. "Then let me get to know you, please." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. "One dinner. If you hate every minute of it, I will never ask again." Olivia wanted to say no. Every instinct told her to protect herself, to avoid the inevitable pain when he realized his mistake. But a larger part of her, the part that was so desperately lonely it ached, wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, he meant what he said. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "But not in town. I will not subject you to that." James smiled, a genuine expression that lit up his whole face. "Come to my ranch this Sunday. I will cook for you. I am not fancy, but I make a decent stew." "You want me to come to your home? Alone?" Olivia's eyes widened. "That is completely inappropriate." "My ranch hand, Tom, and his wife, Sarah, live in the cabin on the property. They will be there. Everything will be proper." James's smile turned slightly mischievous. "Unless you do not trust yourself alone with me." Despite everything, Olivia felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "You are impossible, so I have been told. Is that a yes?" "It is against my better judgment." "I will take that as a yes." James straightened up, looking pleased with himself. "I will come to town Sunday morning to fetch you, 9 o'clock. Olivia nodded, already regretting her decision but unable to take it back. After James left, she sat down heavily on the stool behind the counter, her mind whirling. What was she doing? This could only end in heartbreak. Men like James Vaughn did not truly want women like her. He was caught up in some misguided sense of charity or curiosity. Once he spent real time with her, once the novelty wore off, he would see what everyone else saw. But for just a moment, She let herself imagine something different. She let herself imagine being wanted, being valued, being loved. It was a dangerous fantasy, one she would pay for dearly, but she could not seem to stop herself. Sunday morning arrived too quickly. Olivia woke before dawn, her stomach in knots. She had one decent dress, a dark blue calico that she had sewn herself, and she put it on with shaking hands. She tried to do something with her hair, pulling it forward to partially hide the scars, but it looked obvious and pitiful, so she pinned it back simply instead. There was no point in pretending to be something she was not. James arrived promptly at 9, driving a sturdy wagon with a beautiful chestnut horse in the traces. He helped her up to the seat with easy courtesy, and they set off through the muddy streets of Seattle. The morning was clear and cool, typical for October in the Washington Territory, and the mountains in the distance were dusted with early snow. "Your horse is beautiful," Olivia said, desperate to fill the awkward silence. "That is Copper," James said. "I raised her from a foal. She is steady and smart, everything you want in a working horse." He glanced at Olivia. "Do you ride?" "I used to when I was a child. Not in years, though. I could teach you again if you wanted." Olivia did not respond to that, uncertain if this would be the only time she saw his ranch. They rode in silence for a while, the city giving way to rolling hills dotted with evergreen trees and the occasional homestead. The air smelled of pine and wood smoke, clean and fresh in a way that made Olivia's chest ache. James's ranch appeared as they crested a hill. It was a beautiful spread, with a sturdy two-story house painted white, a large barn, several outbuildings, and fenced pastures where cattle grazed. Everything looked well-maintained and prosperous, the result of hard work and careful management. "It is beautiful," Olivia said honestly. "Thank you." James's voice held quiet pride. "My father started this place 20 years ago when Seattle was barely more than a logging camp. He built it up from nothing, and when he passed 5 years ago, he left it to me. I have been working to expand the herd, improve the breeding stock." He paused. "I am sorry, I am probably boring you." "Not at all," Olivia said. "It is clear you love it." "I do. There is something about working the land, building something that will last. My father used to say that a man is not measured by what he takes from this world, but what he leaves behind." James helped her down from the wagon, his hands strong and sure on her waist. "I want to leave something good." They were interrupted by a woman emerging from one of the smaller buildings. She was in her 30s, plump and cheerful looking, with graying brown hair and a warm smile. "You must be Miss Harper," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I am Sarah Hutchins. My husband Tom is out checking the fence line, but he will be back for dinner. Welcome to Vaughn Ranch." Her smile did not falter when she saw Olivia's scars, and Olivia felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Hutchins. Please call me Sarah. Any friend of James's is welcome here." She linked her arm through Olivia's with easy familiarity. "Come inside. James has been cooking since dawn, though I convinced him to let me make the biscuits. His tend to come out hard as rocks." "That was one time," James protested, following them toward the house. The inside of the house was warm and inviting, with simple but well-made furniture and curtains that looked hand-sewn. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large stone fireplace taking up one wall. Everything was clean but lived in, the home of a man who took care of what he had. "I hope you like beef stew," James said, moving to the large pot hanging over the fire. "It is about all I know how to make well." "It smells wonderful," Olivia said truthfully. The aroma of meat, vegetables, and herbs filled the room, making her stomach rumble. Sarah bustled about setting the table, chatting easily about the ranch and the weather and the upcoming harvest festival in town. Her presence made everything feel normal, safe, and Olivia found herself relaxing despite her nervousness. When Tom arrived, a lean man with sun-weathered skin and kind eyes, he greeted Olivia with a simple nod and a "pleasure to meet you, miss," that held no judgment. The four of them sat down to eat, and Olivia could not remember the last time she had shared a meal with other people like this. In San Francisco, she had eaten alone in her room. In Seattle, she took her meals in the back of the general store or in her small rented room above the milliner's shop. This felt like family, like belonging, and it terrified her how much she wanted it. James was an attentive host, making sure her plate was full and her cup never empty. He told stories about the ranch, about stubborn cattle and clever horses, about the challenges of making a living from the land. Sarah and Tom added their own tales, and the conversation flowed easily. Olivia found herself laughing, actually laughing, at Tom's description of a bull who had escaped and led them on a chase through half the county. "You have not told us much about yourself, Miss Harper," Sarah said gently. "Where are you from originally?" Olivia tensed. "San Francisco. I came to Seattle 6 months ago for a fresh start." "That is quite a journey," Tom said. "Brave of you to make it alone." "I had nothing to stay for." Olivia kept her voice neutral, hoping they would not press for details. James, sensing her discomfort, changed the subject smoothly. "Sarah, how is that new calf doing? The one who was sick last week?" The conversation shifted, and Olivia shot him a grateful look. He smiled back, and she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. After dinner, Sarah insisted on cleaning up, shooing James and Olivia out of the house. "Go show her the horses," she said. "This kitchen is too small for all of us." James led Olivia to the barn, a structure even larger than it had appeared from the outside. Inside, it smelled of hay and leather and horse, a combination that brought back memories of her childhood before everything had gone wrong. Several horses stuck their heads over stall doors, curious about the visitors. "This is my small herd," James said, gesturing to the horses. "I mostly raise cattle, but I have always had a fondness for horses. My father thought I was foolish, said there was no money in it, but I could not help myself." He moved to a stall at the end of the row, where a gray mare stood with a gangly foal at her side. "This is Rosie and her daughter Dawn. She was born just 2 weeks ago." The foal was adorable, all legs and curiosity, and Olivia moved closer without thinking. "She is beautiful." "Would you like to pet her?" James asked. Olivia hesitated, then reached out slowly. The foal sniffed her hand, then butted against it gently, and Olivia could not help but smile. The mare watched calmly, trusting James's presence. "You are good with them," James observed. "They can sense fear or nervousness, and you have neither." "I told you I used to ride when I was young. My father worked in the stables for a wealthy family in San Francisco. Before he started drinking, he would let me help with the horses." Olivia's voice grew soft with memory. "I loved it. The horses did not care what I looked like or where I came from. They just cared if I was kind and gentle with them." "They still do not care what you look like," James said quietly, "because there is nothing wrong with how you look." Olivia pulled her hand back as if stung. Do not what? Do not lie to make me feel better. I know what I am." James moved closer, and Olivia fought the urge to step back. "What do you think you are? Damaged, ruined, unlovable." The words came out flat, matter of fact. "You are none of those things." James's voice was fierce now. "You are a survivor. You are strong and kind and beautiful." "I am not beautiful," Olivia said harshly. "I have not been beautiful since I was 17 years old. Men do not look at me with desire, James. They look at me with pity or disgust. That is my reality. Then they are fools." James reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. When she did not, He gently touched the scarred side of her face, his fingers tracing the twisted skin with infinite tenderness. "I see you, Olivia, not your scars. You." Olivia's breath caught. No one had touched her face since the fire except doctors and nurses. She had flinched away from even accidental contact, unable to bear the reminder of what she had lost. But James's touch was different. It was reverent, wondering, as if she were something precious. "Why?" she whispered, tears spilling over. "Why do you keep saying these things?" "Because they are true." James cupped her face with both hands now, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Because from the moment I walked into that store and saw you, I have not been able to stop thinking about you. Because when you smile, which is rare and precious, it lights up your whole face. Because you are brave and strong and you do not even know it." "You barely know me," Olivia protested weakly. "Then let me know you better. Let me prove to you that you are worth knowing, worth caring for, worth loving." "I do not know how," Olivia admitted, her voice breaking. "I have spent 3 years building walls to keep people out. I do not know how to let someone in." "One brick at a time," James said gently. "We will do it one brick at a time, as slow as you need. I am a patient man, Olivia Harper." She should pull away. She should run back to town and never speak to this man again. She should protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak. But standing there in the barn, with his hands on her face and his eyes full of something that looked terrifyingly like love, Olivia found she did not want to run. She wanted to stay, she wanted to believe. "I am frightened," she whispered. "So am I," James admitted. "Letting someone matter is always frightening, but I think you are worth the fear." Olivia closed her eyes, letting herself feel his touch, his warmth, his presence. Then, slowly, she brought her own hands up to cover his. "One brick at a time," she agreed. The smile that spread across James's face was brighter than the sun. He pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as if she might break, and Olivia let herself be held. It had been so long since anyone had touched her with affection, and she had not realized how starved she was for it. They stood like that for a long time, surrounded by the quiet sounds of the horses and the smell of hay. Finally, James pulled back slightly and said, "It is getting late. I should get you back to town before it gets dark." The ride back to Seattle was different from the morning journey. They talked the whole way, really talked about everything and nothing. Olivia told him about her love of reading, about the books she had devoured as a child, and the ones she still dreamed of reading. James told her about his dreams for the ranch, about wanting to breed horses that would be known throughout the territory. They discovered they both loved thunderstorms and hated tea parties, and had secret fondness for peppermint candy. When they reached the milliner's shop where Olivia rented her room, James helped her down from the wagon. "Can I see you again next Sunday?" he asked. "I work in the mornings," Olivia said, "but I am free in the afternoons. Then I will come to town and we will go for a walk if that suits you." Olivia hesitated, thinking of the stares they would get. "People will talk." "Let them," James said firmly. "I am proud to be seen with you, Olivia." "Never doubt that." She nodded, not trusting her voice. James squeezed her hand gently, then climbed back onto the wagon. Olivia watched him drive away, her heart feeling too big for her chest. That night, lying in her narrow bed, Olivia let herself hope. It was dangerous and foolish, but she could not seem to stop. James Vaughn had looked at her with something other than pity. He had touched her face without flinching. He had called her beautiful and seemed to mean it. Maybe, just maybe, she was not as unlovable as she had thought. The next weeks fell into a pattern. James came to town every Tuesday for supplies, and they would talk for as long as customers allowed. Every Sunday, he would come for her, and they would spend the afternoon together, sometimes at the ranch, sometimes walking the outskirts of town where fewer people would see them and comment. Slowly, carefully, Olivia began to let her walls down. She told James about the fire, about her father's drinking, about the pain of the months of recovery. She told him about the first time she looked in a mirror after the bandages came off, about the horror and despair that had consumed her. She told him things she had never told anyone, and he listened without judgment, holding her hand and letting her cry when the memories became too much. In turn, James shared his own pain. He told her about watching his mother waste away from consumption, about the helplessness of being unable to save her. He told her about the loneliness of running the ranch alone, about the pressure of living up to his father's legacy. He told her about a woman he had courted 2 years ago, the daughter of a neighboring rancher, who had broken their engagement when his mother got sick because she did not want to marry a man with responsibilities. "I thought I loved her," James admitted as they sat on a blanket overlooking his land one November afternoon. "But looking back, I think I just loved the idea of not being alone. When she left, I was angry, but I was also relieved. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Olivia said. "Sometimes we want something so badly we convince ourselves it is right, even when it is not." James looked at her intently. "What do you want, Olivia?" It was a question she had been asking herself for weeks. What did she want? Safety, certainly. Peace. But more than that, she wanted what she was starting to have with James. She wanted this feeling of being seen and valued. She wanted to matter to someone. "I want to be happy," she said finally. "I have spent so long just surviving, I had forgotten that happiness was even possible." "And are you?" James asked softly. "Happy?" Olivia considered the question honestly. "I am starting to be. It frightens me." "Why?" "Because I am afraid I will lose it. Because good things do not happen to people like me. Because I keep waiting for you to realize what everyone else sees." James took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "And what do you think everyone else sees? A monster, a tragedy, someone to pity and avoid. Then everyone else is blind." James shifted closer, his green eyes serious. "I see a woman who saved her father's life at great cost to herself. I see someone who left everything familiar to start over alone. I see courage and strength and beauty that has nothing to do with scars or smooth skin. I see you, Olivia, and I am in awe of you." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I do not know how to believe you." "Then I will keep saying it until you do." James brushed a tear from her cheek. "I will say it every day for the rest of my life if that is what it takes." Something in his words made Olivia's breath catch. "The rest of your life." James's expression grew uncertain for the first time since she had known him. "I am getting ahead of myself. I apologize." "No," Olivia said quickly. "Do not apologize. I just need to know what you mean." James took a deep breath. "I mean that I have fallen in love with you, Olivia Harper. Completely, irrevocably in love with you. I know it has only been 2 months, and I know you may not feel the same way, but I needed you to know. You are the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing on my mind before I sleep. You are the reason I find excuses to come to town, the reason I started keeping a calendar so I would not lose track of the days between seeing you. You are everything I did not know I was looking for, and I love you so much it terrifies me." Olivia stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. Love. He loved her. It was impossible, inconceivable, too good to be true. And yet, looking into his eyes, she saw nothing but sincerity and hope and a vulnerability that matched her own. "I do not know if I know how to love," she said honestly. "I have spent so long protecting myself. I am not sure I remember how to do anything else." "Then we will learn together," James said. "I am not asking you to say it back. I am not asking you for anything except the chance to keep seeing you, to keep knowing you. The rest will come in its own time, or it will not, and either way, I will not regret telling you the truth." Olivia's heart felt like it was breaking and healing at the same time. This man, this good, kind, impossibly patient man, loved her. Loved her despite her scars, or maybe even including them, seeing them as part of her story rather than the sum total of her worth. "I am not there yet," she said carefully, "but I think I could be. I think I might already be on my way." The smile that lit James's face was worth every moment of fear. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Olivia let herself sink into his warmth. She rested her scarred cheek against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt safe. As autumn turned to winter, their relationship deepened. James asked if he could court her properly, and Olivia said yes, even though it meant facing the town's gossip and stares. They attended church together, sitting in the back pew while people whispered and pointed. They walked through town holding hands while shopkeepers watched from their windows. They attended the Christmas social at the town hall, where Olivia endured pitying looks and James deflected intrusive questions with polite firmness. It was hard. Some days, Olivia wanted to give up, to retreat back into her safe isolation. But James was always there, steady and sure, reminding her that she was worth fighting for. And gradually, some of the townspeople began to accept them. Sarah Hutchins became a true friend, inviting Olivia to tea and teaching her to bake bread. Tom would tip his hat and ask about her day when James brought her to the ranch. Even Mr. Miller at the general store began to smile when he saw them together. There were still people who disapproved, of course. Mrs. Peterson, the mayor's wife, made it known that she thought it was disgraceful for a man of James Vaughn's standing to associate with that scarred woman. Her daughter, Caroline, who had apparently set her sights on James years ago, made snide comments whenever Olivia came into her father's hardware store. But James never wavered, never gave any indication that he was embarrassed or having second thoughts. One snowy afternoon in January, nearly 4 months after their first dinner together, James took Olivia to a spot on his ranch she had not seen before. It was a hill overlooking the valley, with a view of the mountains and the sound in the distance. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. "My father is buried here," James said, pointing to a simple headstone. "And my mother beside him. I used to come here when I needed to think or when I missed them." "It is beautiful," Olivia said softly. "Thank you for sharing it with me." "I wanted them to know about you," James said. "I know that sounds foolish, but I talk to them sometimes. Tell them about the ranch, about my life." He paused. "I told them I found the woman I want to marry." Olivia's heart stopped. "James." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I know we have only been courting a few months. I know the proper thing would be to wait a year or more. But I also know that I do not want to spend another day without knowing you will be mine forever. I love you, Olivia. I want to build a life with you, raise children with you, grow old with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to be the man who makes you happy, who keeps you safe, who reminds you every single day how loved and cherished you are." He released one of her hands to reach into his coat pocket, pulling out a simple gold ring with a small diamond. "This was my mother's. My father gave it to her when they were married, and she made me promise to give it to the woman I loved. Olivia Harper, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Olivia's face, freezing on her cheeks in the cold air. Part of her still could not believe this was real, that this wonderful man truly wanted her. But a larger part, the part that had been slowly healing under his patient love, knew that it was true. James Vaughn loved her, not despite her scars but including all of her, every broken and damaged piece. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, James, I will marry you. James's shout of joy echoed across the valley as he swept her into his arms, spinning her around despite the snow and the cold. When he set her down, he slid the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, then kissed her for the first time. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise, and Olivia felt something inside her finally, fully heal. "I love you," she said when they finally pulled apart. "I did not think I could, did not think I deserved to, but I do. I love you so much, James Vaughn." "Say it again," James breathed, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you, I love you, I love you." Olivia laughed, giddy with joy and relief and a happiness so intense it was almost painful. "I love you." They stood there on the hill as the sun set and the stars began to appear, two people who had both known loss and loneliness finding their way home to each other. Planning a wedding in Seattle in the winter of 1879 was a logistical challenge, but Olivia discovered she did not care about most of the traditional trappings. She did not want a big ceremony with hundreds of guests who would stare and whisper. She wanted something small and meaningful, surrounded by people who truly cared about them. They set the date for the 1st of March, giving them 2 months to prepare. Sarah helped Olivia sew a wedding dress from cream-colored silk that James had ordered specially from San Francisco. It was simple but elegant, with long sleeves and a high neck that made Olivia feel beautiful in a way she had not felt in years. The ceremony would be held at James's ranch, in the barn that had been cleaned and decorated for the occasion. They invited only 20 people: Tom and Sarah, Mr. Miller and his wife, a few neighboring ranchers who had been kind to James over the years, and the pastor who had agreed to perform the ceremony after James made it clear he would brook no judgment toward his bride. The night before the wedding, Olivia stayed at the ranch in the guest room while James slept at Tom and Sarah's cabin, respecting propriety even though they would be married the next day. Olivia lay awake for hours, her mind churning with a mixture of excitement and residual fear. Tomorrow, she would become Mrs. James Vaughn. Tomorrow, she would promise to spend the rest of her life with a man who loved her fiercely and completely. Tomorrow, everything would change, but as she finally drifted off to sleep, Olivia realized that everything had already changed. The scared, broken woman who had arrived in Seattle 8 months ago no longer existed. In her place was someone stronger, braver, someone who had learned that love was possible even when you thought you were unlovable. Someone who had been loved so fiercely she had no choice but to believe. The morning of March 1st dawned clear and cold, with a pale sun struggling through high clouds. Sarah came to help Olivia dress, her eyes bright with tears as she buttoned the silk dress and arranged Olivia's hair in a simple but pretty style. "You look absolutely beautiful," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "James is a lucky man." "I am the lucky one," Olivia replied, but Sarah shook her head firmly. "You are both lucky. That is how it should be." She handed Olivia a small bouquet of early crocuses that she had somehow coaxed into blooming in her greenhouse. "Are you ready?" Olivia looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The scars were still there, would always be there, but somehow they looked different now. They were part of her story, proof that she had survived, evidence of her strength. They were not beautiful, but they were hers, and James loved them because they were hers. "I am ready," she said. The barn had been transformed. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm, golden glow over everything. The guests sat on simple wooden benches, and at the far end, beneath an arch of evergreen branches, stood James. Olivia's breath caught when she saw him. He wore his best suit, his dark hair neatly combed, and his green eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. As she walked toward him, she saw love and pride and wonder in his expression, saw him looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. When she reached him, he took her hands and whispered, "You are so beautiful." The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows promising to love and cherish each other in sickness and health, in good times and bad, for as long as they both lived. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, James kissed her thoroughly, not caring who was watching, and the small gathering erupted in applause. The celebration that followed was joyful and intimate. Sarah and Tom had prepared a feast, and there was music and dancing and laughter. Olivia found herself swept up in it all, her face aching from smiling so much. Several of the guests went out of their way to welcome her to the community, and she realized that while not everyone would accept her, enough people did. She had found her place. As the sun began to set, James pulled her aside. "Are you happy?" he asked, echoing the question he had posed months ago. "I am more than happy," Olivia replied. "I am home." That night in the bedroom that was now theirs, James made love to his wife for the first time. He was gentle and patient, taking time to kiss every scar, every mark, showing her with his body what he had been telling her with words for months. Olivia cried, but they were tears of joy and release, the final shedding of years of pain and self-loathing. "You are so beautiful," James murmured against her skin. "So perfect, so loved." And lying in his arms afterward, Olivia finally, truly believed him. The months that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. She threw herself into being a rancher's wife with the same determination she brought to everything else. She learned to cook proper meals, to tend the kitchen garden, to help with the smaller ranch tasks. She became close friends with Sarah, and the two women would spend afternoons together sewing, baking, and sharing the kind of easy companionship Olivia had never had before. James was everything a husband should be. He was patient with her fears, passionate in his love, and unfailingly supportive of her growing confidence. When she decided she wanted to learn to ride again, he spent weeks teaching her, never once losing his temper when she was nervous or uncertain. When she expressed interest in keeping books for the ranch, he taught her the business side of ranching, trusting her judgment and valuing her input. By summer, Olivia had transformed the ranch house into a real home. She made curtains for all the windows, planted flowers around the porch, and spent hours in the kitchen preserving vegetables and fruits for the winter. She found she had a talent for it, for creating beauty and order, and it gave her a sense of purpose she had never had working in the general store. One evening in August, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, James said, "I have been thinking about expanding the horse herd. There is a good market for quality horses in Seattle, and we have the land and the facilities. What do you think?" The fact that he was asking her opinion, treating her as a true partner, made Olivia's heart swell. "I think it is a wonderful idea. You have such a gift with horses. It would be a shame not to pursue it." "It would mean more work," James cautioned. "More expense up front before we see any return." "We can manage it," Olivia said confidently. She had been keeping the books for 3 months now and had a clear picture of their finances. "We have enough saved to buy good breeding stock, and Tom could help with the training." James pulled her close, kissing her temple. "Have I told you today how much I love you?" "Only 3 times," Olivia teased. "You are getting lazy." "Well then, let me make up for it." He proceeded to list all the reasons he loved her, from her beautiful eyes to her terrible singing voice to the way she always burned the first batch of biscuits but refused to give up. Olivia laughed and protested and felt so full of joy she thought she might burst. That night as they lay in bed, Olivia said softly, "I think I might be pregnant." James went very still. "What?" "I am not certain yet," Olivia admitted, but I am 3 weeks late and I have been feeling strange in the mornings. I did not want to say anything until I was sure, but I cannot keep it from you." James sat up, lighting the lamp with shaking hands. In the soft glow, Olivia could see a mixture of hope and fear on his face. "A baby. We might have a baby, we might," Olivia said. Then, feeling vulnerable, she added, "Are you happy about it?" "Happy," James's voice cracked. "Olivia, I am thrilled. Terrified, but thrilled. A child with you, a family of our own. It is everything I wanted but was afraid to hope for so soon." "I am frightened," Olivia admitted. "What if I am a terrible mother? What if the baby is ashamed of how I look? What if—" James silenced her with a kiss. "You will be a wonderful mother. Our child will grow up knowing that true beauty comes from within, that strength and courage matter more than a perfect face. And any child of ours will love you as fiercely as I do." Over the next weeks, Olivia's pregnancy was confirmed by the doctor in Seattle. The news spread quickly through the small community, and to Olivia's surprise, several women came to call with advice, baby clothes, and congratulations. Even Mrs. Peterson unbent enough to send a note wishing them well, though she could not resist adding that she hoped the child would be fortunate enough to take after its father in looks. Olivia tried not to let comments like that bother her, but sometimes in the dark of night, she would lie awake worrying. What if her child was born with scars? What if her damaged skin somehow damaged the baby? James would hold her and remind her that the doctor had assured them she was perfectly healthy, that her scars were only skin deep and would not affect their child. As her belly grew, so did Olivia's confidence. She felt powerful in a way she never had before, her body doing this miraculous thing despite everything it had been through. James was endlessly fascinated by the changes, his hands constantly on her stomach, feeling for the baby's movements. When she finally felt the first flutter of life inside her, she wept with joy. The winter was hard, with heavy snows that kept them close to the house for weeks at a time. But Olivia did not mind. She spent her days sewing tiny clothes, reading books on child rearing that James ordered from San Francisco, and dreaming about the future. They turned the small room next to their bedroom into a nursery, painting it a soft yellow and filling it with a cradle that Tom built and toys that Sarah knitted. In late February, nearly a year after their wedding, Olivia went into labor. It was a long, difficult birth that lasted through the night and into the next day. James stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her face, and looking absolutely terrified. Sarah and the midwife, Mrs. Thompson, managed everything with calm efficiency. Finally, as dawn broke on February 27, 1880, Olivia's son was born. He came into the world screaming his displeasure, a healthy baby boy with a shock of dark hair and his father's green eyes. "He is perfect," James said, tears streaming down his face as he held his son for the first time. "Absolutely perfect, just like his mother." They named him Daniel Thomas Vaughn after James's father and Tom, who had become like family to them both. Olivia had worried that motherhood would be beyond her, that she would not know how to care for this tiny, helpless creature. But from the moment Daniel was placed in her arms, a fierce, protective love rose up inside her. This was her son, hers and James's, and she would do anything for him. The early months were exhausting. Daniel was a good baby but demanded constant attention, and Olivia's world narrowed to feeding and changing and rocking, and the blessed few hours of sleep she could grab. James helped whenever he could, walking the floor with Daniel when he was fussy, changing diapers without complaint, bringing Olivia food when she was too tired to leave the nursing chair. "I could not do this without you," Olivia told him one night as they both stumbled back to bed after yet another feeding. "Yes, you could," James said, "but I am grateful you do not have to. We are partners, Olivia, in everything." As Daniel grew from infant to baby to toddler, he became the light of their lives. He had James's easy smile and Olivia's determination, and he was absolutely fearless. By the time he was 2, he was trying to climb onto the horses and following Tom around the ranch like a devoted shadow. Watching James with their son filled Olivia with a contentment she had never imagined possible. He was patient and playful, teaching Daniel about the animals and the land, reading to him every night before bed, and showing him in 1,000 small ways what it meant to be a good man. "You were right," Olivia told Sarah one afternoon as they watched James and Daniel in the corral. Daniel was sitting on a gentle old mare while James led her around, the little boy shrieking with delight. "About what?" Sarah asked. "He is a wonderful father." "But then he is wonderful at everything." Sarah smiled. "You are both wonderful. You have built something beautiful here, Olivia. A real family, a real home. You should be proud." Olivia was proud. More than that, she was grateful. Grateful for the fire that had brought her to Seattle, even though it had scarred her. Grateful for James's stubborn refusal to see her as unlovable. Grateful for every moment of joy and struggle that had brought her to this place. When Daniel was 3, Olivia became pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, her body knowing what to do. Their daughter, Emma Rose, was born in the spring of 1883, a tiny thing with Olivia's amber eyes and a surprisingly full head of blonde hair. "Now our family is complete," James said, holding Emma while Daniel peered at his new sister with intense curiosity. "Is she going to stay?" Daniel asked suspiciously. "Yes, she is going to stay," Olivia said, laughing. "She is your sister. You have to help take care of her." Daniel took this responsibility very seriously, informing anyone who would listen that Emma was his baby and he was going to teach her everything. As Emma grew, she proved to be as strong-willed as her mother and as charming as her father, a combination that kept them all on their toes. The years passed in a blur of work and laughter and love. The ranch prospered under James and Olivia's joint management. The horse breeding program became successful beyond their wildest dreams, with buyers coming from as far away as California for Vaughn Ranch horses. They added more land, hired additional hands, and built a bigger barn. Daniel grew into a serious boy who loved reading as much as ranch work, often found with a book in one hand and a horse brush in the other. Emma was wild and fearless, climbing trees and racing horses, and declaring she was going to be a rancher like her father. Both children grew up knowing they were loved unconditionally, and neither ever questioned their mother's scars. To them, it was simply part of who she was, no more remarkable than her amber eyes or her terrible singing voice. On their 10th wedding anniversary, James took Olivia back to the hill where his parents were buried, where he had proposed. They stood looking out over the valley, now dotted with their cattle and horses, their children playing with Tom and Sarah's grandchildren in the distance. "You remember what you said to me the first time we came here?" James asked. "I said yes," Olivia replied, smiling. "Best decision I ever made. Before that, you said you were afraid you would lose this happiness, that good things did not happen to people like you." Olivia nodded, remembering the fear that had consumed her then. "Were you wrong?" James asked gently. Olivia thought about the question seriously. "I was wrong about being unlovable. I was wrong about not deserving good things, but I was not entirely wrong about the fear." James looked concerned. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I am still afraid sometimes. Afraid that I will wake up and this will all have been a dream. Afraid that something will happen to take it all away. But I have learned that fear does not have to rule me. I can be afraid and happy at the same time. I can acknowledge the fragility of life while still embracing joy. She took his hand. You taught me that. You loved me so fiercely I had no choice but to believe I was worth loving. And once I believed that, everything else became possible. James pulled her close, and they stood together as the sun set over their land, their life, their love. I would do it all again, James said. Every moment, every struggle, every fear, because it brought me to you. And I would do it all again, Olivia replied. The fire, the pain, the years of thinking I was unlovable, because it brought me to you too. It made me who I am, and who I am is someone you could love. They kissed as the stars began to appear, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something lasting and true. The years continued to pass, bringing new challenges and joys. Daniel went off to university in Seattle to study literature, declaring he wanted to be a teacher. Emma stayed on the ranch, as devoted to the land and the horses as her father had ever been. James's hair began to gray at the temples, and Olivia's hands grew rough from years of work. But their love never diminished. They celebrated births and mourned deaths, welcomed grandchildren and said goodbye to old friends. Tom passed away peacefully in his sleep at 70, and Sarah followed him 2 years later, her heart broken by his absence. New ranch hands came and went, but the core of Vaughn Ranch remained the same: family, hard work, and love. On their 25th wedding anniversary in 1904, James and Olivia threw a party that brought together seemingly half the Washington territory. Daniel came home from Seattle with his wife, Margaret, and their 2 children. Emma had married a neighboring rancher's son, a good man named Robert who loved her fierce independence, and they had 3 boys who were already showing signs of being natural horsemen. As Olivia looked around at the crowd of people celebrating with them, at the ranch that had grown beyond her wildest dreams, at the family that had come from 2 lonely people finding each other, she felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. "What are you thinking?" James asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I am thinking that I am the luckiest woman alive," Olivia said. "I am thinking that the scared, broken girl who came to Seattle would not believe any of this was possible. I am thinking that I have lived a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I am thinking," James said, kissing her neck, "that I have loved you for 25 years and I love you more today than I did yesterday, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today." "That is mathematically impossible," Olivia teased, "and yet it is true." James turned her in his arms so she faced him. In the lamplight she could see the lines on his face, the gray in his hair, the evidence of years lived and loved. "You are my greatest adventure, Olivia Vaughn. My greatest joy, my greatest love." "And you are mine," Olivia replied, no longer afraid to speak the truth of her heart. "You saw me when I thought I was invisible. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You gave me a life I never dared to dream of. How can I ever thank you for that?" "By staying with me," James said simply. "By loving me as I love you. By being exactly who you are, scars and all, for the rest of our days." "That," Olivia said, standing on tiptoe to kiss him, "I can do." The party continued late into the night, with music and dancing and stories told and retold. Children ran wild through the ranch house while their parents reminisced, and their grandparents looked on with indulgent smiles. It was everything a celebration should be: loud and messy and full of love. Later, when the guests had finally gone home and the house was quiet, James and Olivia lay in their bed, the same bed they had shared for 25 years, holding each other in the darkness. "You have any regrets?" Olivia asked softly. James was quiet for a moment, considering. I regret every moment of pain you have ever felt, every tear you have ever cried, every person who ever made you feel less than the remarkable woman you are. But I do not regret a single moment of our life together." "Neither do I," Olivia said. "Not one moment." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had learned that love was not about perfection, but about seeing and accepting all of someone, flaws and scars and fears included. They had learned that the fiercest kind of love was the love that refused to look away, that saw the broken places and loved them most of all. As the years rolled on, James and Olivia grew old together. They worked the ranch as long as they were able, then gradually handed more and more responsibility to Emma and Robert. They spoiled their grandchildren shamelessly and watched with pride as Daniel's teaching career flourished, and Emma's reputation as a horse breeder spread throughout the region. On a cool autumn evening in 1915, when they had been married for 36 years, James and Olivia sat on their porch watching the sunset, as they had done countless times before. James had been feeling poorly for several weeks, and the doctor had confirmed what they both feared. His heart was failing. He had months at best, maybe only weeks. "I am not ready to leave you," James said, his voice rough with emotion. "I thought we would have more time." "We have had a lifetime," Olivia replied, though her own heart was breaking. "More than I ever thought possible. More than I deserved." "You deserved everything," James said fiercely. "You deserved the world, and I only hope I gave you a fraction of that." "You gave me everything that mattered," Olivia said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "You gave me love. You gave me a family. You gave me myself. You taught me that I was worth loving, James. That is the greatest gift anyone could give." They sat in silence, holding hands, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. The mountains in the distance were the same as they had been on that first day James brought her to the ranch, eternal and unchanging. But everything else had changed. They had changed, grown, evolved together into something neither could have been alone. "I am not afraid of dying," James said quietly, "but I am afraid of leaving you alone." "I will not be alone," Olivia assured him. "I have our children, our grandchildren. I have this ranch that we built together. I have decades of memories to keep me warm. And I have the absolute certainty that I was loved completely and without reservation. That is more than most people get in a lifetime." "Promise me something," James said. "Anything. Promise me you will remember how beautiful you are, how loved you are. Do not let my leaving make you forget that." Fresh tears spilled over. "I promise. As long as I promise, you will remember that you gave a broken girl a reason to believe in love again. You gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You are the best man I have ever known, James Vaughn." They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 36 years of love and passion and partnership. When they pulled apart, James rested his forehead against hers and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for taking a chance on a stubborn rancher who could not take no for an answer. Thank you for being my wife, my partner, my love." "Thank you for seeing me," Olivia replied. "For looking past the scars and seeing the woman underneath. For loving me so fiercely I had no choice but to believe." James passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully in his sleep, with Olivia holding his hand and their children gathered around. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched, but Olivia barely registered any of it. She felt hollowed out, empty in a way she had not felt since before she met him. But as the days turned to weeks and the weeks to months, Olivia discovered that James had been right. She was not alone. Their children rallied around her, moving her into the main house with Emma and Robert so she would not have to rattle around by herself. The grandchildren came to visit often, bringing noise and chaos and love. And slowly, Painfully, Olivia learned to live without the man who had been her other half for more than 3 decades. She found comfort in the ranch, in the horses that still needed tending and the land that still needed managing. She found purpose in teaching her grandchildren the things James had taught her, in passing on the legacy of Vaughn Ranch. And she found peace in the memories, in the absolute certainty that she had been loved completely. On what would have been their 40th wedding anniversary, Olivia made the long walk up the hill where James was buried next to his parents. His headstone was simple: James Daniel Vaughn, 1853–1915, beloved husband, father, and grandfather. But to Olivia, it should have said so much more. The man who taught me love, the man who saw beauty where others saw scars, the man who gave me everything. "Hello, my love," she said, settling onto the ground beside his grave despite her aching joints. "It has been 4 years. 4 years of missing you every single day. But I want you to know I kept my promise. I remember how loved I am, how beautiful you made me feel, how you gave me a life I never thought possible." The wind rustled through the trees and Olivia smiled. "The ranch is doing well. Emma and Robert are talking about expanding the horse breeding program even more. Daniel's oldest boy wants to be a veterinarian and work with horses. Can you imagine our grandchildren carrying on what we built?" She talked for a long time, telling James about the grandchildren's accomplishments, about the new foals born that spring, about the book Daniel had published about frontier education. She told him about the moments when she missed him so much she could barely breathe, and the moments when she felt his presence so strongly she could almost believe he was still there. "I am 61 years old," she said finally. "My face has more wrinkles than scars now. My hands are gnarled and my back aches and I move slower every day. But I am still here, James, still living the life you gave me, still grateful for every moment we had together." She stood slowly, her knees protesting, and placed her hand on the headstone. "I love you. I have loved you since that first day you walked into Miller's General Store and looked at me like I mattered. I loved you when you proposed on this very hill. I loved you through 36 years of marriage and 4 years of grief, and I will love you until the day I die and beyond." Olivia lived another 8 years, staying active and engaged with the ranch and her family until the very end. She saw Emma's boys grow into fine young men, saw Daniel's daughter become a teacher like her father, saw the ranch expand to nearly double its original size. She saw the world change around her, saw automobiles replace horses on the streets of Seattle, saw the First World War come and go. But through it all, she carried James's love like a candle in the darkness. She never forgot the lessons he had taught her. That beauty was more than skin deep. That love was about seeing and accepting all of someone, that she was worth loving exactly as she was. On a warm summer evening in 1927, at the age of 69, Olivia Harper Vaughn passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. She was buried on the hill next to James, their headstones side by side. Two people who had found each other and built something that would outlast them both, her gravestone read. Olivia Harper Vaughn, 1858–1927, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. But beneath that, Emma had added one more line, words her mother had said often in her final years. She thought she was unlovable until he loved her so fiercely she had to believe. The ranch continued to prosper for generations, passed down through Emma's line to her children and grandchildren, and beyond. And always, the story was told of James and Olivia, of how a stubborn rancher had seen past scars to the woman beneath, of how love had transformed two lonely people into a family that spanned decades. It was a story of hope and healing, of refusing to accept the world's judgment, of fighting for love even when it seemed impossible. It was a story that reminded everyone who heard it that being unlovable was never about how you looked, but about whether you had found the right person to see you. And Olivia Harper Vaughn had found that person. She had been loved so fiercely, so completely, so perfectly that she had no choice but to believe. And in believing, she had found not just love but herself. The end came not with sadness but with gratitude. Gratitude for a fire that had brought her to Seattle, for a general store that had needed a clerk, for a Tuesday when a handsome rancher had walked in looking for rope and flour, and had found something infinitely more precious. Gratitude for every moment of fear she had pushed through, every doubt she had conquered, every wall she had torn down brick by brick, because in the end, Olivia had learned the most important lesson of all, that love was not about being perfect or unblemished or beautiful by the world's standards. Love was about being seen, truly seen, and loved anyway. And she had been seen by James Vaughn, loved by him with a fierceness that had transformed her entire world. Their love story became legend in the territory, told and retold around firesides and dinner tables. It became a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt unworthy, unloved, or unseen. It reminded people that true love looked past surface scars to the beauty beneath, that the right person would not just accept your flaws but would love them as part of the whole. Years after they were both gone, their great-great-grandchildren would stand on that hill looking out over Vaughn Ranch, still thriving more than a century after James and Olivia had built it together. They would read the headstones and hear the stories and understand that what their ancestors had created was more than just a successful ranch. It was proof that love could conquer even the deepest wounds, that being unlovable was a lie told by people who did not know how to see. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, James and Olivia were together again, whole and happy, loving each other with the same fierce devotion that had defined their mortal lives. The scars were gone, but the love remained, eternal and unchanging, a testament to what they had built and who they had been to each other. She had thought she was unlovable. He had loved her so fiercely she had to believe. And in that believing, she had found everything she never knew she needed. Love, family, purpose, and a happiness that transcended the physical and touched something eternal. Their story was complete, their love immortal, their legacy everlasting. And it had all begun with a simple choice: to walk into a general store on a Tuesday afternoon, to really look at a scarred woman behind a counter, and to see not damage but possibility. To see not a monster or a tragedy, but a woman worthy of love. That choice had changed everything. That choice had given Olivia Harper a life she never dreamed possible. That choice had proven that love, real love, fierce love, could transform even the most broken among us into something whole. And that was the greatest gift of all.